Ready to go. All right, seeing that we have a quorum, we'll get started with an official call to order. And we'll start with our review of minutes from our last meeting. Any comments or corrections or anything for last minutes? If none,
I'd make the motion to approve the minutes.
I will second that.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bills. John, you want to go over bills?
Sure, we've got bills for the last 2 months here from October and November. Major bills on there would be some of the legal fees that we've had for loans, property sales, and general Hedra business done by Legal Law. And then some of the environmental review that's been conducted on Block 1. Now, some of that environmental review will be reimbursable through the grant that we received for environmental review.
Any questions, comments? If none, then
I'll make the motion to approve the bills as presented.
and a second. All those in favor of approving bills, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, and that motion carries as well. Moving on to business.
Okay, well, we've got 2 items of business tonight. We have one that was previously included in the packet, and then one that was added and put out to the public on yesterday regarding another loan. So I'll go through the first one we have first, which is an authorization of signature for a real estate option agreement for the northern portion of Block 1 for Rangoli, which is the real estate arm of Panache LLC. And you recall at the October meeting, we accepted a letter of intent from Amita Jaiswal Dale, who is the associate for Panache Cidery. And in reviewing that, we thought it would be better to have something that would be a little more substantive than the letter of intent. That included a couple of paragraphs, but no real direction on where to go next. So we had our legal staff draft an real estate option agreement, which would provide essentially a term in which she would have exclusive rights to the property between now and June 5th of 2019. During that time, we would go through some negotiations about the purchase price, development of the property. The intent of that would be to establish a purchase and development agreement at the end of the term so that we could potentially transfer the property over to her for development of the site. If for some reason that project does not move forward or there's issues or objections from the board, then we can terminate that agreement, or the agreement itself would expire at June 1st, 2019. With that, there would be a $1,000 payment in earnest funding, which is consistent with the letter of intent that she submitted in October. So what we're looking for tonight is authorization for signature of that agreement, and I can stand for any questions.
Yeah, Mark, please.
So John, it looks like the applicant has signed this already, so they're with the understanding. I know we needed this agreement to go apply for the grant to clean up the property.
Mm-hmm.
What if, in the meantime, while we're waiting on the grant, what if the city of Panache say, you know what, it's not going to work, and the applicant says, I want to remove myself from this, so we don't have it locked up with that company till June, whatever it is. How does that work on the grant? Do we have to let the grant know then that, oh, we no longer have an applicant?
Yeah, with the grant itself, we did submit an application for environmental cleanup funding. That was about $225,000. I actually heard back today on that one that unfortunately we were not funded for it. But the very encouraging notion of that was it was a very competitive round, and they had more applications than they had anticipated. And I spoke to the granting agent at Met Council, and he encouraged us strongly to apply for the April round and thought we had a very good chance of being funded. So it seemed like it was more of the number of applicants that were out there as opposed to the funding or the criteria. I looked at their scoring of her funding, and we certainly met the criteria, albeit there was others above us that scored higher, so we were not granted this time.
That's good. Thank you.
John, in terms of process, as we move into this initial 60-day period of price-specific discussion, who starts that conversation?
I think it's going to be jointly between us and Panache. We need to establish that purchase price. That's going to be the most significant portion. So that's going to be inclusive of the board here so that we're all comfortable with what the terms would be moving forward.
And do we have a number? We being, I mean, it would start with city staff, of course, but is there a recommended starting point? I mean, given
Yeah.
the current investment and appraised value, what
Sure.
variety of criteria, obviously.
If you take a look at the appraised value of the property, I guess there's a couple of different parameters. The assessed value of the property, I think, is just over $7 a square foot for that site. The appraised value, when we had CB Richard Ellis promoting that property the last couple of years, I think they had it at about $8 a square foot. So that would be the market price for the property itself. Now, from our discussions with Panache, it appears likely that they may come in asking for something that would be smaller than the market price for the property. I've told them that sale of the property for $1 would likely not be considered favorably. We'd be looking to get something for the property, so that's where we're at, between $1 for the whole site and about $8 a square foot for the site. So that's where the negotiation aspect would come in.
And just as a final, I mean, just a ballpark number at $8 a square foot, what does that equate to? I don't remember the square footage
It's
there.
400 to 500,000.
400 to 500. So at the end of 60 days, at the point where negotiations have exhausted, this just becomes a null and void agreement? Is that essentially how it's?
Right, if the terms of this
If I understand it
agreement are not
correctly?
met, then it becomes null and void,
Okay.
correct?
You ready for a motion?
Yeah, if there's no other discussion or questions.
I make the motion that we sign the option as presented, the optional agreement for the Panache Cidery on lots A and B on Riverfront 2.
We have a motion
I'll second that.
and a second. All those in favor of accepting to sign, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Having none, that motion carries. And that moves forward.
Thank you. And I'll be meeting with Panache on Monday and discussing where we move forward from here. So we want to make sure that this is in the front seat. And then moving on to the second item of business tonight that we have, that is a economic development revolving loan fund application by Spiral Brewery at 111 East 2nd Street downtown. Their request is for $12,300, and that would be for installation of a cooler and restoration of some new storage space in an adjacent building. I think everyone's pretty aware of Spiral Brewery's operations here. What's been going well for them is the business, and they've been able to do some expansion, have some more storage space, but they're in need of some funding to make that work for them. So you may note that on the original application, their request was for $17,515. We did have to reduce that due to our policy of granting no more than 50% of a project cost on a loan. So that's where that $12,300 comes into place, which is 50% of the $24,600 of the entire project. In the past, we did provide them a loan in 2017 for $48,000 to assist with the interior construction and working capital, and that loan is current on that one. They meet the eligibility requirements and the other policy requirements that we have established for the loan, and we are recommending approval of it. So with the action tonight, we'd be recommending approval for city staff to continue to work with Spiral Brewery to put together the loan documents, the mortgage agreement, promissory note, and other items that would be necessary to secure the loan.
Any questions or comments?
Chairman.
Please.
John, how are the loans to the business or loans to the building?
It would be, we'd have to have something secured on there, so it could either be to the business with some security of collateral or to the building itself.
So this, I don't have that in front of me here, is that, this, you had said it to an adjacent space, that's a different building?
It would be, they're leasing out a portion, that's correct, John? Okay.
Thank you.
Let's open to motion. If there's no more discussion,
A motion to approve.
we have a motion to approve
I'll second it.
and a second. All those in favor of approving this loan agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And having none, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Moving on the agenda here, that's the remainder of the business on the reports and information. Under Great River Landing, update on what's going on with that site there. We have received the building plans for the building itself. You may recall that in the purchase and development agreement, they needed to submit the building plans to us by December 1st, and they did meet that deadline, so we've had them for a couple of weeks now. I did speak with their building official as to his impressions and review. He said they look pretty complete, and so we'll look forward to issuing that shortly on that project. So that's great news. So with that building permit being issued, they'll be able to start the interior remodel work of the site itself. And from talking to Confluence, that's something that would be still happening this winter. On that agreement itself, we have a requirement that they have substantial completion on the project by December of 2019, so they'll have a lot of work cut out for them as they move forward over the year. Another thing related to Great River Landing is we have the landscape plan and photometric plan review. When we approved the land use approvals in 2015, there was not a clear picture of what the landscape plan would be at that point. And so we held off on approval of that portion of it until the information was complete by the State Historic Preservation Office and other entities. We have the plan now that was reviewed by Planning Commission on the 10th. There was a recommendation for approval at that meeting, and then that'll be brought forward to the City Council on Monday the 17th. So the plans, the landscape plan and photometric plan, those are independent of the plans that were part of the purchase and development agreement, but still important to move forward on the project. The one thing that it does signify there is that should be the last action that the council or Hedra will need to take related to this development here to allow it to construct. So looking forward to that moving forward, and I can answer any questions you may have on that.
John, just to clarify, throughout this process, we keep going back to this December 2019, and none of this has affected that substantial completion date? Because I think some of this plan review, this submission and review is coming in later than was anticipated months ago. I'm
That's
just curious
correct.
if there's any indication that that's going to push the December 2019.
It's a fair question. I've not had I don't think that's been addressed by the developer at this point as far as whether the December 2019 completion date is still something they anticipate or not. I think we're focused at the moment of being able to get them started on the project and get something moving down there. When we had the original purchase and development agreement, we had planned submittal, I think, by August of 2018. So the submittal date was put back about 4 months, but the completion date was not. So either it'll be a very compressed construction time or maybe there'll be some other request in the future. But I think our primary focus at this time is to make sure the plans are in and that the project can begin construction.
I think from seeing the demolition, what they did on the First National Bank building, we're gonna see a parking lot probably in the spring, and that would be then 100% complete on the parking lot, and then the construction they're gonna do on the Great River Landing, you know, Confluence's project, if it's 50% done or 60% done with the parking lot, it's probably substantial in our minds because they're already completed that much work. So, you know, it will be in their ballpark to get as much done as they can by the December date.
And just an update on the parking ramp too. They are waiting on some of the structural elements to be erected, which they will be doing over the winter, doing the welding and some of the concrete erection there. And then the concrete work will have to wait till spring, but it sounds like they would be anticipating late spring opening for that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And moving on to economic development services. This is kind of becoming a saga a little bit. Last time we spoke, we were going to be putting out for a request for proposal to provide economic services through a consultant company. We did do that. We sent out the RFP. We got 3 responses back, carefully reviewed the responses, talked with a few people, and decided that really wasn't the best option to do that. So we have gone out again and have advertised for the full-time position. If you may recall, upon Morgan's departure early this year, we had advertised for that position twice and did not do any finalist interviews. And so this would be the 3rd time. Hopefully this will be 3rd time the charm. I do recall the first time that we hired for the position originally, it did take us 3 times to find a good candidate. So hopefully that'll be the case this time. But applications for that would be due January 13th, and everything is up on our website at present. And we're trying to promote the heck out of it. So that's economic development services. A couple of items on ArtSpace Hastings Lofts. There was a good article in Architectural Minnesota in December that featured ArtSpace Hastings Loft as a great example of affordable housing construction. So that's a kind of a neat thing to take a look at. The other thing is that it was a finalist for the Rescape Community Impact Award by Minnesota Brownfields. Now, Minnesota Brownfields is an organization that we've been involved in more in the last couple of years. Their main focus is to take contaminated sites and to rehabilitate those. And so for the community impact category, we were nominated along with 2 other sites for that. And that was a good, nice honor to be able to see that and get some recognition for that site. I do know that when we get to the point of having Hudson under construction, Great River Landing next year, when these awards go out again, that one will be in there. And I hope we win that one. So we've got that moving forward. On the commercial vacancy side, there's not a lot that's been changed down there. One big significant thing is the mileage gas station, as you might be aware, on just east of Vermillion and Highway 55 has been purchased by Lawrence Interiors. I did speak with Matt today, and they're moving forward with their conversion of that site into a showroom and the gas station site. And then the repair garage facility would be some warehousing and another small office space there. So they'll be taking down the canopy, the tanks have been removed, and that'll be a nice reuse of that site that's been vacant for some time. So they'll be vacating their store in downtown, which will provide for some more space down there. And we haven't had much that's been on the market long for rentals down there. It seems like the foot traffic that we've been seeing down there has increased the last couple of years, and so hopefully that won't be vacant too long. We did have a changeover in that small shop at 113 2nd Street with Arts and Crafts Store Muse 2320 opening up in there. And then we have the Gons Dental building back on the market again at 314 2nd. So that's what we've got on the vacancy aspect of things. Other vacancy, Commissioner Pam Denning, who has served Hedra here for a number of years since we started in 2009, and then prior to that on HRA, so a total of over 14 years, decided not to seek reappointment after this year. So this would have been her last meeting, but she did email me to tell me that she's engaged and she's in Florida. And so it looks like life is good right now. So she's wintering down there. We wish her all the best. Along with that, we still do have a vacancy on Hedra. We did advertise that we'd be accepting applications up to last Friday, the 7th, I believe it was. We've extended that, so we will be continuing to accept applications for that into the beginning part of the year. So we'll get another notice out there. But if anyone knows of anyone who may be interested, or if anyone's listening that may be interested, application information is on our website, or just give me a call and I'll help out with that. So that's what I have for tonight.
All right, if we've covered everything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I got one question
Oh,
first.
please.
Jen, going into 2019, we're gonna hopefully get another person to work with us. What do we see coming forward? Are we gonna be more, go back to our workshop discussion I thought that was a good start that we had about the Vermillion Street corridor plan and trying to target where we're gonna put our efforts. Will that be our efforts starting in 2019?
Yeah, to answer part of the question, yeah, I think it'd be best for us January, February to have a workshop meeting to go over some of the goals we established for last year, make sure we're still on track. What I see as larger things coming up this year would be hopefully with the property north of Art Space, having that acquired by Panache would be great. And then the few key sites on Vermillion Street that I think we've identified in the past, really actively working with people to try to fill those. I mean, I've been meeting and making some phone calls to people that do different types of development and show them copies of the plan and see if there may be some interest, but just to continue things like that.
Okay.
Any more discussion, questions for John? Now we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second,
I'll second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.